Back with you in Mankato, it's the Zone Coverage Daily Recap here at Vikings Training Camp. My name is Sam Ekstrom, Arif Hasan to my right, Luke Inman to my left. The whole team is here. We've got 7 days in the books here in Mankato, 2 days of pads, and big news today, Xavier Rhodes extension done. 6 years, 5 tacked on to his existing contract, $78 million. Not too shabby for the former first-round pick.
Yeah, pretty good, and also pretty good for the Vikings, too. I think this is kind of one of those instances where you get a win-win deal. For the Vikings, you take a look at all these salaries that cornerbacks have signed over the past couple of years, compared to the cap environment that it was in, and it's actually only the 9th largest average contract value for a cornerback that is regularly, or should regularly be competing for the Pro Bowl. And here, I think, is one of my favorite stats about Xavier Rhodes. Last year, in coverage, when he was targeted, allowed the league best passer rating, 47.0. Just incredible work. Plus, got that touchdown.
Yeah, just touching on that, I think the front office, again, like you said, it's a win-win. The front office needs a little bit of kudos because once again, they prove that, you know, once they draft their guys and they develop them, if they earn it, they'll pay you. And I just think that sends a great message from the top down to some of these young kids. So kudos to guys like Xavier Rhodes and Everson Griffin. And we've already heard maybe guys like Linval Joseph could be restructuring. Anthony Barr could be soon. Eric Kendricks maybe next year. So really encouraging from the front office now.
Xavier Rhodes asked by our own Arif Hasan what his first purchase is going to be. His response, diapers.
Immediately, actually. He was pretty confident in what that answer would be.
Did not hesitate. Well, he can buy a lot of diapers now with $41 million guaranteed on that contract. Moving on, today had a story up at zonecoverage.com on Sam Bradford's third down conversion rate last year. I think that's an underrated talker. A lot of people point to his completion percentage, guys, as a reason why he was such a good quarterback. But I think a lot of that's due to he was very conservative on third down, especially third and 7 yards and beyond. And I'm not sure it's a stat that you want to necessarily praise or use as evidence for how good Bradford was last year. You can talk about his arm strength. You can talk about some of his downfield accuracy when he did go deep. But I think the Vikings need to establish themselves as more of an explosive play team. And he talked about the importance of that today, that he and Pat Shurmur have really been collaborating this offseason.
Well, I think when you look at the fingerprint and the identity of this team, it's always going to be play good defense and don't turn the ball over. But I think at the end of the day, in a passing league, you have to be able to move the ball deep downfield. And that's something that they just couldn't do. And you can blame a lot of different facets and variables like the offensive line. You know, Sam Bradford came in late. Heck, his offensive coordinator, Norv Turner, left after 5 games. So I just think, you know, there's a lot of different factors. But this year, no excuses anymore. They got to be able to move the ball deep downfield. And so far, so good, I think, from camp.
They were a 29th ranked team in red zone conversions as well last year. That's going to be another huge facet of this team's offensive success.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that the fact that they've invested in the offensive line will allow them to, you know, make waves as they get closer and closer to the end zone. But also, you know, their investments in Michael Floyd, their hope that Laquan Treadwell will develop, as well as an investment in Bucky Hodges, I think gives them the kind of red zone weapons that they need. We've also seen them work a lot of the red zone offense today and in previous days. And the offense is doing pretty well, despite, you know, I think what we'd all agree is a pretty good red zone defense.
And I think, too, just touching on that, sometimes quarterback's best friend is a good running game, too. So adding Dalvin Cook, Pat Elflein, and 2 offensive tackle free agents, clearly you saw today in practice, specifically in the red zone, they want to be able to be, you know, run the ball effectively down in the red zone.
And one last note on that third down percentage from last year. On third and long, Sam Bradford, 6 of 48 converting first downs. That's 1 out of every 8. But he had 25 plays last year where he converted a pass short of the line to gain. So we're going to need to see some more of those explosive plays, and hopefully that results in more touchdowns and not settling for so many short field goals as they did 18 times last year.
Not every completion is a success.
And you got to wonder, too, Pat Shurmur taking over halfway through the season, how much he's going to be able to implement now into kind of his own identity in this offense now that he's got a full offseason, too. That's just another kind of variable that we're looking into when it comes to the offensive side of the ball.
Let's talk about what we saw today out there on the practice field. Another gorgeous day in Mankato, big crowd out here on a weekend. And I'd say it was a day of wide receivers and defensive linemen really making splashes. And I know that it's always easy to say because those are sometimes the 2 positions that have the most chance to pop here in Mankato. But it's hard to deny that Michael Floyd especially was very, very good today, and I think continued to distance himself from Laquan Treadwell, and I think a lot of Vikings fans have got to be wishing, man, I wish he wasn't suspended because this guy looks good.
Yeah, he looks fantastic. We saw it in the 2-minute drill. He had 2 clutch completions, one of them for a touchdown. I thought the ball was well placed, but he still had to reach out, reach behind himself, grab that sliding touchdown. Just really impressive work. He was able to get behind the defense, do a lot, I think, not just in open space, but also when things were contested. My favorite player of the day actually was Everson Griffin. He was just dominant. He beat up on Rashad Hill, he beat up on Mike Remmers, he beat up on a couple of guards even on some twists that we saw. He was just fantastic. There was even a moment where he switched from right side to left side to right side. He won 3 consecutive reps. If it was a game situation, I'm sure the offensive lineman probably would have played a little bit better, but also that quarterback might be looking for his backup.
Yeah, absolutely. On the ground, on his back, for sure. Winner from today's practice, Luke?
Yeah, you mentioned Michael Floyd. I just want to say, we're all reminded of why he was drafted in the first round when he came out of Notre Dame. Clearly, the size is a factor in that big catch radius. But when you talk about the defensive line, you start to almost feel bad for the offensive line after a while.
So.
Linval Joseph, Everson Griffin, Daniil Hunter. Then this guy B-Rob comes in and looks great. But Shamar Stephen and Tom Johnson, the 2 rotational guys next to Linval Joseph, I thought both of them played outstanding. One more of a run stopper, Shamar Stephen, and the other more of a nickel pass rusher. Again, it just seems like both those guys in a rotation of deep defensive linemen, both those guys play their role very well, and I think it's going to be another season of a lot of rotating and a deep group, if not their deepest group of the whole team.
I'm going to give Bucky Hodges his first real props of Mankato. I think he's been fairly nondescript this week. Today, he was spectacular. 4 great catches that I can think of. He had 1 long pass about 25 yards downfield on a post route, had a diving catch along the sideline on an out-cutting route, had a nice catch on the goal line during red zone drills, and then later on had at least 1 more good catch in the back of the end zone, I think. There were four that I counted for Bucky Hodges today, and he's one guy that's going to get an opportunity. The Vikings really only have 2 clear-cut locks at tight end, and Bucky Hodges, the guy they drafted out of Virginia Tech, who's gone out on a limb comparing himself to Randy Moss indirectly, based on the 84-84 comparison. Don't know if he did himself any favors there, but today he finally looked the part.
Yeah, and I want to add, so of course he's had these highlight plays, fantastic stuff. I think Virginia Tech fans are very familiar with the kinds of things Bucky Hodges can do. A lot of people thought, he should have been drafted higher. One of the reasons he wasn't drafted so highly is, some people have questions about his ability to block. I think so far in camp, he's had some bad days, but so far in camp, and I think he's showing that he's a lot better than his reputation as a blocker, I think, would imply. I think he's had some pretty good wins, especially today. Again, pretty rough around the edges. He had some losses too. But I think if he can supplement, that receiving game, especially in the red zone, with adequate blocking, I think that he could be a real contributor for the Vikings.
Well, I think he's got the size, and you can't teach the size. So now it's just a matter of developing that raw talent. And I think, they have David Morgan, who's going to step into a big role this year. But it's nice to have that 3rd tight end that you can sprinkle in that can add you a big play weapon. Just to note as well, there's a lot of buzz around Taylor Heineke last week and today, or excuse me, yesterday. But Case Keenum, there was a stretch of 3 straight pass plays. He threw 3 straight touchdowns. So he's starting to make his case and solidifying why they brought him in to be the backup
Case
quarterback.
Keenum's best day, I think.
I think so. Yeah. Yep, I think so.
Safe to say the play of the day, I think, was probably Sam Bradford on a deep pass to Stephon Diggs. You had a great view of it. Splits through Andrew Sendejo and Trey Waynes. Catches it in stride, touchdown.
Yeah, when you say split, people think that they were stride for stride. Well, Diggs was actually behind both those guys when the ball was thrown. He had to gain speed and split those guys after the fact. Harrison Smith was trailing, so he really beat 3 defenders all in one. But to be able to come down with it at the end, you can have the speed, but be able to track that ball and make the play. Stephon Diggs, were reminded again, too, why he's so special.
It looked really natural, and the best part, I think, was also the throw.
Yeah.
Which perfectly placed, exactly where Diggs needed it. Barely even had to look for the ball. It just appeared. Just fantastic stuff. Touchdown.
And as good as we've seen Sam Bradford be on those deeper throws, you really hope, going back to our previous conversation, that they utilize it more this year. So we've talked about guys that impressed us. We've touched on the offensive line, a little disappointing today. Arif, anyone else that disappointed you today? Any losers of day 7 of camp?
Yeah, no, I think that, we had a couple of problems with the linebackers. They bid a lot on play action. There was a lot of play action passing over the past couple of days. And I want to say Eric Wilson, who's been hoping to make the teams, special teams contributor, he's a guy that, kind of pops out. He's a guy that, might be able to be that sixth linebacker. He had a lot of trouble, keeping track of where the ball is. I saw Will Sutton also, not a linebacker, but Will Sutton also bite a little bit on play action. Otherwise, pretty good day from him. But I think that the defense overall, particularly the linebackers, and I guess also Will Sutton, had a lot of problem kind of identifying what was going to happen on a play whenever there was any element of diagnosis involved. I think on the opposite end, we saw good stuff from Eric Hendricks, but I think we saw issues from Anthony Barr. I think we saw issues from Emmanuel Lemur and Edmund Robinson for sure when it came to that play diagnosis.
And Lemur was back with the ones today in the first team. Luke, any losers today?
Yeah, like I mentioned, they don't have it easy, but this offensive line, I think specifically the tackles, talking about guys like Mike Remmers, I think Rashad Hill came back to reality a little bit today. Yeah. Those guys, again, they don't have it easy against the talent that they're going up against on a consistent basis, but I think all in all, you wonder, did they do enough to get better on the offensive line this year? And that's going to be the big question. It's really going to take them more than just a few days of training camp to grow that continuity, but that's going to always be the biggest question mark for me heading into the season.
And my loser for the day, every top wide receiver that Xavier Rhodes will have to face over the next 6 years, because now he's going to be in purple through 2022. That's one of the big stories at zonecoverage.com. Arif Hasan has that covered. I've got that story with a lot of numbers on Sam Bradford's third down efficiency. Luke, you're our video guy. You got a lot of videos coming up, zonecoverage.com. Great work, guys, and we'll talk to all of you tomorrow from Mankato.